Hello, everyone. God bless you, and I'm glad you've joined. We're going to talk today about the chronological order of events during the tribulation period. Hope this microphone here is not too much in my face, but anyway, um, this is a topic that has taught me a lot of things to get into the chronology of of how the events are going to unfold in the tribulation, and I've learned a lot of things because when I started to study this, and I thought I was gonna learn very things were gonna go fast, but the amazing thing with the chronology is that when something is wrong, it doesn't have to be in the chronology, but somehow the Lord anyway didn't let me go on. I was preparing videos to show the chronology, and oops, something's not working. And then I was first when I first started, I was a little bit upset because I wanted to move on so fast. And then I realized, no, it's I can't go on like this. Things got to be straightened up, and I've learned a lot. We've learned a lot of things, and people sometimes wonder, well, what's the point? There's already been in the past many people who have done charts, let's say, for to show the chronology and how things happen. And of course, we know now that they were not right necessarily, but now um, when the Lord really revealed to us an awful lot of things, and with the right chronology, not only the chronology is right, but the narrative has to be right. If your narrative is wrong, the chronology is going to be wrong, and vice versa. And so, this is a very important topic to understand and to get right, because as things begin to happen, and they have begun already, even though we are not yet in Daniel's 70th week, um, the um, we're going to know as we go along with this, as we learn the right chronology in every step of the way, we're going to know where we are, and we're going to know what is going to come next, and not going to be a surprise. It's not going to be a shock after shock, even though there's a lot of things that are beyond understanding, and it's going to be rough. Most people know that. But when we know that there is also the protection from the Lord, that He's going to fight at the same time for us, but despite the difficulties that are going to come, it's going to this is so important to understand how it goes. We have we already doing have already taught a lot of chronological stuff as to how we're going to come to the point where how we're going to get to Daniel's 70th week. We've already explained many times that without a temple, Daniel's 70th week cannot begin, as it is clear in the first prophecy of Daniel 9:27 concerning the 70th week, that the first thing that is mentioned about the temple is the midst of the week. So everything from there, from before the midst or after the midst of the week, everything there's always something related to the temple, and I'm not gonna go over that. But we have already announced that the man of sin, the Antichrist, is going to be of an Israelite of the flesh. We'll look at that. I'm just going to go through a few things to get us into what's going to happen just before we get there. Um, just give me a second here. I hope I got the right verse. Okay, just we showed by this verse here that Daniel 11 verse 37. where it says, neither shall he regard the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any God, for he shall magnify himself above all. The God of his father, that's talking about the Antichrist here. We have already established that the God of his fathers is a Jewish, is used, is an expression that is used exclusively by Israelites of the flesh in reference to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay, this is Exodus 3 and verse 6, where God spoke to Moses, says, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Okay, and so we we know that the man of sin is going to be an Israelite of the flesh, and that he's going to be the prime minister or a government leader before he gets to be the man to in global government, because he's the little horn. And so we have those things very specified, and I realized this week that there's another thing that's going to prove or that's going to confirm who he is, when the prime minister of Israel, minister of Israel that gets the construction of, that brings the political influence to get the construction of the temple going, that will confirm who he is. Right? And so we know that, and we know that this is coming very soon. And but once the temple gets going, it's going to be short, and once the temple is totally built, things are going to happen, and we know where it's going to start with the first animal sacrifice. We mentioned that. What I'm going to do today in this session, I have been working on preparing some videos to teach the chronology, and I will use a few excerpts, just short excerpts, to explain some basic things, because in order to get the right, or to synchronize properly the events in the tribulation period, there's a basic understanding that we must have, and I'm going to use one of my videos just to get us started here, just a little short thing, and about Daniel's 70th week, and we're going to look at that together here. And just give me a second. I'm going to get that started. Okay, and let's listen to this. In order to properly synchronize how events will unfold during the tribulation, it is necessary to understand how those events need to be organized in the narrative as if they were written in a threefold book. In other words, all prophecies relating to Daniel's 70th week are identified in three different sectors of activity. The first fold or sector deals with government and military activities. These are outlined in the scroll sealed with 7 seals. The first 6 seals are opened in Revelation 6, and the 7th opens in chapter 8 and verse 1. The 7 seals set the boundaries of Daniel's 70th week, meaning that all the events in the 7 years of tribulation will happen between the first and the 7th seal. The scroll sealed with 7 seals covers the entire 7 years of tribulation, but only the first 4 seals are relevant during the first half, leaving the other 3 seals for the second half of Daniel's 70th week. I'm going to stop here for a minute, because there's no timeline given for the first 4 seals, okay, which will happen during the first half of Daniel's 70th week. So we look at them as a block of events. And the way we will recognize which seal we are in is because the events are going to change. And this is how we're going to know it. And there's nothing in the scripture telling us, okay, your first seal is going to be so many months or so many days, second seal, third seal, and fourth seal. But we know that in the first seal, there's going to be peace, and you'll see that there's the differences. I got more a little bit on the tape, and the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh seal, we have a timeline that is very accurate for that, which we'll discuss a little bit later on here. So let's keep listening to this. The other two sectors of activities run parallel with the scroll sealed with seven seals. The second fold deals with divine judgment activities, such as trumpet judgment. And the third fold addresses the spiritual and religious realm, such as activities related to the third Jewish temple. All right. Okay. So just let me just bring this back here. Okay. All right. So we have those three sectors of activities where we have the government and military activities, which are what's going to go on from the government world in the military world as well, which is going to be, we know that the government is going to be a multinational military alliance. And there are things that are not like this is what's going to be done from the government, but there's the divine judgments, which is going to be God's response to what's going on in the world. And those are different sources, but they happen at the same time. They happen simultaneously. I'm going to give more details on that in a little bit. And at the same time, there's going to be religious or activities in the religious world or the spiritual world. And this is how we can really sort out how the events are going to happen. When you read something, if you want to know, well, when is that going to happen? And one thing that you want to know is that you want to determine in your mind, okay, is this something that is being done by the government, by the beast system, by the Antichrist and his allies? Or is it a judgment that is sent by God? Or is it something that is happening in the religious world to deceive the world? And so those are the kind of things that make a difference in how to establish or how to understand the chronology of the events. Okay, so that has given, the Lord's revealed that to me, and that has given me a lot of ability to discern where to put things, where things line up together. Okay, so we're gonna this principle goes through the entire 7 years of Daniel's 70th week. Right from the beginning to the end, there's going to be activities in all three sectors. Okay, and I'll go do a little bit of an overview here, run a little bit of another little clip, very short here, and then I'll go on with more freely with explaining what's going on, some of the things we need to know. Okay, here it is. Okay. Okay, just give me a second. All right, here we are. Okay. Let's do a brief overview of the first half of Daniel's 70th week. From the moment the temple comes into operation, the governmental and military activities described in the scroll sealed with the seven seals in Revelation 6 will begin with the first seal event. Then, over the following 1,260 days, which corresponds to the first 3.5 years of Daniel's 70th week, the first four seal events will be completely fulfilled. Then the narrative is also given from another perspective in the sector of divine judgment. From Revelation 8 and verse 6 all the way to the end of chapter 9 and verse 21, the first six angel trumpets reveal events that will happen during the first 3.5 years after the dedication of the temple. And last, in the sector of religious activities, the only thing I will add at this time is that the offering of daily sacrifices will go on for the entire 42 months and then cease, according to Daniel 9:27. As we return to government and military activities, scriptures do not give a specific duration for each seal during the first 42 months. So we'll look at those four seals as a block of events. However, we know that out of the first four seals in Revelation 6, verses 1 to 8, comes four colored horses, each with a rider. The rider on each horse is actually the same. It is the Antichrist going through different stages as he conquers the world. All right. Okay, so that gives us a good idea what the four seals are. And mentioned there, the trumpets are going to happen at the same time. So once the dedication of the temple is consecrated, the first seal opens, and the events will begin to happen in the first seal, and the rider on each horse is the Antichrist. So when you read that in Revelation 6 from verses 1 to 8, those are represent all activities of the Antichrist and his government and what he will do. Okay, and that brings a much clearer understanding, and that's the only possible interpretation when you see what happens in each of the with each of the seals. Just that the first one is is white on a white horse, represent peace and different things, and you'll see then after that war begins, and then famine, and then more intensive war, and all out war, and much destruction. Okay, so my purpose tonight is not to go into the details of every of the seals, each seal in this particular session, or in what happens with each of the trumpet, but it's just to give an idea, a very good understanding when things happen. It's a real timeline, really. There was one thing that I wanted to share, because it's sometimes people will read, and you read the seals, the scroll with the seven seals, and then after that it goes into the trumpet judgments, and those are not the seals first, and then the trumpets, and then the vials of wrath, and there is something here that I want to share with. I just got it here, I think, on that I can share it. Yeah, that's Revelation 8 and verse 1. When the seventh seal is open, I want to bring something to, so you can understand how the chapter 8, what happens in chapter 8 here. There's when where I mentioned in the video that the narrative is given from a different perspective in chapter 8, but chapter 8 verse 1 begins with the statement that, okay, and when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. All right. And that's all it says about the seventh seal. And anyone that has not read the, does it work? Anyone who hasn't read the, let me see here. Okay. All right. I just make sure there's people there. Okay, just hold on. Um, I just wanted to make sure we're doing fine here. I just forgot to check it out. Okay. Okay. Fine. Okay. Um, when you get into the seventh seal, and it opens in Revelation 8 in verse 1, and I'm going to discuss that here because if anyone has not read yet the latest study Brother Jerry Ripley has written in on the seventh seal events, you need to look at that. And if it's not there, if somebody can put it there, it would be well worth it, because this is a really, really good study. And what happens when the seventh seal is open? We see there's a silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. And nothing is said here about what goes on in the seventh seal, but they are written further down. So it's like a pause there. There's a break there. And then in verse 2, there's a narrative that starts all over again. But this is where it's interesting. It says, and I saw the seventh angel which stood before God, the seven angels which stood before God, and to them were given seven trumpets. All right. And just give me a second. I'm just going to adjust this here. Okay. And another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense, which came with the prayers of the saints, ascended up before God out of the angel's hand. And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar and cast it into the earth. And there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. Now, these verses here from verse 2 to 5, I'm just going to leave it there for now, are actually taking us back just before Daniel's 70th week begins. This is like part of the final events of the beginning of sorrows. Okay, where in the very last event that happens is the earthquake, and what's important here is that earthquake is there's no damages recorded from that earthquake. All right. And that's because it's the last event of the beginning of sorrows. And that's going to happen right about the time of the consecration or dedication of the temple, the first animal sacrifices, probably just before or just about the same time. And then immediately after, they will follow, the judgments will begin to come with the trumpet judgments. And often the question was asked, will we hear the trumpets? And what we've come to the conclusion is that those trumpets sound in heaven. So we will not likely hear them, but we will see the judgment and recognize by the judgments that happen that the trumpets have sounded. Okay. Another point here. Let me just go and mention something about the trumpets. I wanted to say something, one more thing about the earthquake. Now, the earthquakes are in a way, they're not necessarily judgments, and they can't just happen at any time during the tribulation, because earthquakes have a very precise purpose. when there's an earthquake, we go back to Matthew when Jesus died and cried, "It is finished." There's a recording here. I wanted to look at that. And okay, in Matthew 27, I could go and get that verse for us actually. Just give me a second. I'm going to change that and go with Matthew. Okay, let's see if we're going to get that. Okay, let me get back to you on this. What earthquakes do, they mark the end of an important period. And the example here that I'm going to bring is with this one here. Okay, it's Matthew, I believe Matthew 51. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain. I could just go back a little bit. It says, and Jesus, when he had cried again with a loud voice, yielded up the ghost. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from top to bottom, and the earth did quake, and the rocks rent. Okay, and this happened because as a sign that the covenant of the letter, the law of Moses, had reached its term. It was finished. It was over when Jesus died. Paul wrote, "Christ is the end of the law." When Jesus died, he had fulfilled the law, and it was the end of the law. And when this earthquake happens in Revelation 8 and verse 5. Oh, I hadn't shown it. I read. Okay. I read the other one in Matthew, and I forgot to show it on the screen, but that's where it was. Okay, in Matthew 27:51, he says, "The earth did quake." There was an earthquake, and the rocks rent, and it was when Jesus died, because it was the end of the old covenant. Now, in this case here, in Revelation 8, verse 5, there's an overview of Daniel's 70th week, of the events that will happen. And then after that, there's a pause, and the narrative begins from a different angle. And just before we get into the judgments, there's this earthquake, which marks the last event of Daniel 70th week. All right. Once we get into the trumpets, then there are 6 trumpets that will take place during the first half of Daniel's 70th week. The 6 trumpets are actually divided. I could divide them into 2 categories. There's the trumpets that come in, and the trumpet judgment that come in, and the first 4 trumpets come in on the elements of nature, on the waters, the sea, the rivers, and on the trees and the grass in the first few trumpets. And so there's no, it's not directly on the bodies, but everybody is affected by it, because it will have it's a very severe toll on the economy and on the food. That is the production, because of the fire that will burn on the first trumpet, and then the water is going to turn to blood, and then going to turn to what's the word, wormwood, and then there's going to be the sun and the moon. They're going to be the darkened for a one third. The day is going to be one third shorter. So there's going to be a lot of effect uh, indirectly, but yet everybody's affected by them. And when we get to the, I'm going to go down. Let's see here if I can go to the. So the chapter 8 is all the is the first four trumpets, which are called the indirect judgment, but yet everybody's affected. And then in verse 13, we have, it says, Revelation 8, verse 13 says, "And I beheld, and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels which are yet to sound." All right. So then there's the woe trumpets, the woe trumpet judgments. And then after that, we go to, and the woe trumpet judgments are, it's actually three woes. The first woe is the fifth trumpet, which is still in the first half. So people wonder, well, is there going to be anything happening in the first half of Daniel's 70th week? How is it going to be? There's going to be a lot of stuff going on. It's not going to be as intense as in the second half, but yet there's going to be a response from God against the wickedness of the beast government, of what will go on. And there was going to be a lot of death and evil things that the men of sin will do against the church. Let me see here. I'm just going to go, but it's not going to be as like the second half. But then when we get into the fifth trumpet, I just want to go, just give me a sec. I'm going to go to chapter 9. Okay. And here it is. Okay. And are we still sharing this? Oh, I don't have the right one here. Just give me a sec. Sorry. Giant or large print is what I wanted. Large print. Okay, right here. There it is. Is this on? Yes, it is. Okay. The fifth angel sounded, and I saw, okay, a star fall. Okay, then we get into the woes. And the amazing thing here with this judgment, this trumpet, it says, just give me a second, where it says, it was commanded them that they should not hurt, verse 4, okay, chapter 9, verse 4, it says, "And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, nor any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their forehead." And in the first four trumpets, that was not necessary to be said, because it was not, the judgment did not come upon man, but it came on those other elements of the earth, of nature. Okay. And that verse also proves that the church is on the earth, because the ones who have the seal of God in their foreheads are the ones who are baptized in Jesus' name and filled with the Holy Ghost, who have repented of their sins. So this fifth trumpet judgment get to a place when you get to the end of it. It says, "One woe is past," in verse 12. "One woe is past, and behold, there comes two woes more hereafter." All right, and so this, and here's an important thing too. Just give me a second, because I think it was verse 10. It tells us that, okay, and they had tails like unto scorpions. Those are locusts, like demons that take the form of locusts, and with scorpion tails, and hurting people, and people don't die from them, but get with the sting of the scorpion tails, they get hurt, and they want to die, but they can't die. And uh it says, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. So this fifth trumpet, or the first woe, will last. The judgment, the plague itself, will go on for 5 months. Now, is there a time a little bit after those, that between the two woes? I would believe there may be a few months, because there's 3.5 years during the first half. Then we got 5 months, and then the second woe will begin with with the sixth trumpet, which is the last judgment of the first half of Daniel's 70th week. Okay, and that sixth trumpet uh, it will be going on at the same time as the fourth seal. There's going to be a lot of people dying from the trumpet judgment, and there will be a lot of people that the fourth quadrant, the fourth beast, will actually kill and cause people to die. Okay, and that judgment in the sixth trumpet will last for 1 year. So what we have here is 1 year of the judgment of the plague of the sixth trumpet, and 5 months of the fifth trumpet, and some, maybe a few months in between. We have about half those two trumpets will be the last half of the first half of Daniel's 70th week. So we can estimate that the first four trumpets will happen in the first about 21 months of the first half of Daniel's 70th week. All right. Then when that trumpet will end, that the sixth trumpet judgment will end, uh, the second half of Daniel's 70th week will go on, but the second woe still goes on. Okay, I won't go into the second half yet. Then I'm just going to go now into the religious spiritual events. What will go on? The main things that will go on in the religious realm during the first half is, of course, the fact that there will be animal sacrifices that will be reinstated, because they will have reinstated the law of Moses, because they have not believed the Messiah came. So they had to prepare. They go back to as if they were under the law, waiting for their Messiah to come. Okay, um, that goes on for the entire first uh, 42 months, 1260 days, the first half of Daniel's 70th week. And then that's where Daniel 9:27 says, and in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice to cease. Now, how is it going to be that the sacrifice is going to cease? Why is the sacrifice going to cease? Is the important thing. I will go get a verse for that. And I know we have gone through this before, and in Revelation, just give me a second. It's in chapter 13. Okay. Let's see. Okay, it's in verse 3. Okay, I'm just going to make sure I got this on. Okay. Why is it going to be that the sacrifice is going to cease? What it says here, showing in the past in Revelation 3, that he said, I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. That is talking about the Antichrist. Okay, that head, which is the seventh head, it was wounded to death, and it will look. They were going to certainly make it look like he died, but that he came back to life. But the scripture reveals to us that his deadly wound was healed, so he didn't truly die. And likewise, we go verse 14 also tells us the same thing. It says, and he deceived them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, that's the false prophet, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast which had the wound by a sword and did live. All right. Even if they make it look like he died and rose back to life, the scripture tells us that his wound healed, or that he had the wound by a sword, but he did live. Okay, and that's when he has this when there's that event or that looks like he died, and then he looks like he lived. After that he raised back to life. This will be the fulfillment of prophecy, an imitation of what Jesus did, where Jesus truly died and rose back to life. And and as Jesus, when he came back to life, when he rose, there was that earthquake we talked about. The veil in the temple was torn in two, and there was no more animal sacrifices possible because the temple was inoperable, for one thing. And they're going to do the same thing here. They're going to say, this is our Messiah. We don't need animal sacrifices anymore. And then this is when he's going to come into the temple and proclaim that he is God. All right. So this is what takes place roughly in the first half of Daniel's 70th week. In the first four seals, we have the government military activities that will go in progressively get worse with each seal, and then the response of God with the trumpet judgments upon his government. The first four trumpets being uh, targeting nature will affect everybody, the church, but nobody's is getting hurt directly, although some will probably die. But and then the from the fifth trumpet, it's the woe judgments that begin with the fifth trumpet and the sixth trumpet in the first half. And while this is going on, it's like the Israel will have gone back to the old covenant law of Moses, and on and all the way through, and until he gets to a place, probably in his wars, that he will be killed or appear to have been killed and brought back to life. All right, this is what will go on in the first half of Daniel's 70th week. In the second half, which is the fifth seal in the government and military activities, we see this is their activities is shown a little bit more in well, in chapter 13, where he makes war, where he makes war with the saints. But it also reveals that in let me go find that here in I'll go in just go. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to just go here and we'll go back to chapter 6. Okay. All right. And I believe it's in verse 9 and 10. Okay. Where it says, okay. Yeah, we got it there. Okay. He says, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? And white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, until their fellow servants also and their brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled. All right. So, and okay, right there. Okay, yeah, that's it. Yeah, 9, 10, and 11. Okay. It says that it was said unto them that they should rest for a little season. You say a little season. Well, how long is the little season? And these are the saints. I believe myself a long time that these were the people in the Great Tribulation, but saints that were killed and martyred throughout tribulations, throughout history. And they're crying to God. They're saying, How long? How long are you going to avenge? Are you not going to judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? Okay. And it was said to them that they should rest for a little season, and until their fellow servant also and their brethren should be killed as they were, should be fulfilled. Okay, so that period there is going to be is this fifth seal is the 42 months. We have that's why I said we have this measure here, because the scripture tells us that he's going to have power for 42 months. Okay. And this is how long the fifth seal is the 42 months. And while this is going on, what happens in the sector of um, of divine judgment? Uh, that one was a little bit of a work to find. Because we need to know something that there has to be judgment, and there's nothing that truly describe clearly judgments in that period, and it seems like it's going to be it's kept uh, like secret until it happens, but I'm sure we will recognize. But there again, there is going to be 7 major judgments in okay, let me just get that, in that period of time, where in chapter 9 really is the end of the first half, with the judgments, and then chapter 10 is like a transition, but it reveals something here on the side of judgment, with this angel that comes down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was upon his head, and his face was as it were the sun, and his feet as pillars of fire. And he had in his hand a little book open, and he set his right foot upon the sea and his left foot upon the earth. And he cried with a loud voice, as a lion roareth. And when he had cried, 7 thunders uttered their voices. And when the 7 thunders had uttered their voices, I was about to write, and I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, Seal up those things which the 7 thunders uttered, and write them not. Now, this is not giving us any clear details as to what these thunders said, but the character itself of thunder, it represents a judgment. And each of the seven thunders uttered some things. You see, seal of the things which the seven thunders uttered. Okay, so that each of the seven thunders uttered their voices. Okay, so there will be seven major judgments that will take place, that we will certainly recognize probably with these thunders, but there's not great amount of details on there. um but this is what will happen. This is what the only things that really fits into judgment, divine judgment, is the seven thunders. I'll give you a verse here that really shows how the thunders are actually judgment. Um, okay, let me. Uh, okay, right here, and I believe it's in verse 10. No, that's 8, verse 10. The adversaries of the Lord shall be broken to pieces. Out of heaven shall he thunder upon them. The Lord shall judge the ends of the earth, and he shall give strength unto his king and exalt the horn of his anointed. All right. He judge the judgments, the thunders represent judgments. All right. And then we will, this is pretty well all that's recorded, except that at the end, we get to the Jerusalem earthquake at the very end of the 42 months. And in that earthquake, from that earthquake, 7,000 men died. And that is in I believe is in chapter Revelations 11. Just give me a second here. So this is what happens in the second half. Where? Second here. Okay, right here. Okay. And that is down. Yep. Verse 13, Revelations 11:13 says, in the same hour was there a great earthquake, and the 10th part of the city fell. Well, what city is that? That is Jerusalem. Okay. And in the earthquake were slain of men 7,000, and the remnant were affrighted and gave glory to the God of heaven. In the part of judgments, divine judgment, that's the last judgment that will take place. But at the same time, that thunder, not thunder, but that earthquake marks the end of a number of things. It marks the end of the Great Tribulation, it marks the end of the time of the Gentiles. Okay, because when we get right after that, we get the seven trumpet sounds, in chapter 10. John wrote that once the seventh trumpet sounds, the mystery of God will be finished. Will be accomplished rather. Okay, so that will be the end. From that time on, it's like the salvation. It's completely over. Even though there's not going to be too many people in the second half, obviously that will repent, but the door will still be open. But once you get to that last earthquake, it's like the end of the new covenant era. All right. one more thing. Okay, what happens during that time in the in the sector of religious activities? The false prophet comes on the scene, turns the attention towards the man of sin, towards the Antichrist, brings the worship to him, or commands people on the earth to build him an image, to make him an image, imposes the mark of the beast, and does all this work. So there's a lot of things going on in the second half in the sector of religious activities. And this is where the wars with the nations is pretty well going to be over, because they're all going to be one nation. The world is going to be one big country under the power or the reign of the Antichrist. And the only people that will oppose him will be the church. So this is where the persecution and tribulation is going to be very intense against the church, against the Christians. All right, this is where there's going to be a lot. The people that are going to be killed, martyred, or beheaded is going to be mainly the Christians. There might be a few other ones, but it's the attack is really going to be against Christians. And it is already starting, but it's going to be very intense then. What else will happen in the sector of religious activities? There's going to be the two witnesses. The two witnesses will be in Jerusalem. Bible says they will prophesy for 1,260 days. And that is equivalent to 42 months, the 42 months reign of the Antichrist. So they will be there in complete opposition to him, and with great power and miracles, and they will also bring some judgments, and possibly what I would think, and this is where the judgments that will come from that they will call upon the beast and his kingdom, and the people that oppose the message is probably going to come from. They will probably call them down. Some of the seven thunders may probably be some of the messages or judgments that the two witnesses will call upon the earth. All right. And at the end, where the two witnesses, we see that they get killed, lay in the street for 3.5 days, bring back to life, and then ascend to heaven. The voice God calls them to come up here, and they go up, and at the very same time, that's when that earthquake will take place. That Jerusalem earthquake will happen. And then where do we go from there? There's another period in if we use Daniel 9:27. Let me just find. Okay, Daniel, I think this is it right here. I'm gonna go get it. Just give me a second. All right, we're gonna go with Daniel. Did I say 9? No. Daniel 12:11. I think I already had. No, I'm going to get it anyway. 12. And if we go get that, okay, and I'm going to put it on the screen. Is this it? This is no. Okay. That's it. Okay, just give me a second. I'll go get that. And we'll look at that here. And we've mentioned that verse many times. Okay. And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that makes desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. We've already determined that the two witnesses, their ministry is 1,260 days, or the equivalent to the 42 months of the Antichrist. So when the two witnesses go, there's still some time remaining, and the what happens is the Antichrist is still there, but he does not have the power that he had during the 42 months. He's been defeated by the resurrection, or humiliated by the resurrection and the ascension of the two witnesses. And what happens in those 30 days, or if we say there was 3 days that they were dead in the street and then rise up again, 20 would be 27 days. Regardless, this is where the sixth seal begins, with the seventh trumpet. The seventh trumpet sounds after they are gone, after the two witnesses ascend to heaven, and the the seven vials. Oh yeah, and then the Antichrist is there, but not is somewhat defeated. He's under the judgments of the seven bowls of wrath. All right, and this is what happens for the last 30 days. We'll say set 27 to 30 days. Okay, we'll use 30 days, and that's what goes on for the. So if you see if you say seven bowls of wrath judgment in 30 days, or 27 days, would be one every 4 days, would roughly one bowl of wrath judgment every 4 days. So they're not going to have time to do much but to try to save their skin, to hide, find a place to hide. And we find that is represented as well in the sixth seal. When we go to just let's use one here. I'll go back to Revelation, and I'll bring Revelation. That would be 6 and starting at verse 12. Just give me a second. All right, we got this here. I gotta go find it here. That's it. Okay. We see that what will go on. I heard a voice. No, verse 12. When the sixth seal opens, okay, and when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. And this is a little bit like in the seventh, and at the same time, when the sixth seal opens, the seventh trumpet sounds as well, and the judgments come in. This is all; those are coming at the same time. The sixth seal and the seventh trumpet, and I'm just going to go down here to show, because it's only in the seals that you really can find the reaction of the government, the action or the reaction of the government and the people. And it's not just the government, but it's going to be all the people that have gone with this system, that have taken the mark of the beast, and that have taken him. It says in verse 15 here, see, it says, and the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men. You see how it starts with all the elite, the people of importance, kings, great, rich, captains, mighty. And then it goes, and every bondman, every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. And that will be really what will go on a lot. The attitude, not as much as on the last day, but this is what will go on while during the sixth seal, during the last 30 days, and and while the seven vials of wrath are poured down on the earth or in the air, whichever way it comes. During the vials of wrath, or the bowls of wrath. Okay, this is what will be happening in the seal, in the government and military sector of activities. All right, and we already mentioned the 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 seven bowls of wrath, and in the sector of religious activities, uh, there probably won't be near all that much going on because of the defeat, and now and it's going to be more like a time of hiding. These people are going to hide. They thought they had this going on forever, but now the Lord is coming down against them, and when they get to the place where we get to the last day, the final, the 1,290 days. Did I read that just a few minutes ago? I had it on there. I'm gonna go get it. Just give me a second here. Right, I said that after 1,260 days of the two witnesses, or 42 months of the reign of the Antichrist, which is equal the same. It says, but that from the daily sacrifice, from the time the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that makes desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. So I said from 1,260 to 1,290. Well, we have a 30-day there. That's where we get it. I know most of you know it, but anyway. So what happens? The only thing that is left to be done in the religious activities on the part of the Antichrist and his government and his all and his false prophets and the whole works is the abomination of desolation. Many thought, and it's been believed that way for a long time, that the abomination of desolation was when the man of sin sits in the temple, as described in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. But that is not possible when we look at that verse here in Daniel 12 and verse 11, where it says, no, it's going to be 1,290 days after the sacrifice is taken away. So that is going to happen on the last day of Daniel's 70th week, where he will retaliate one more time, and he will go and set up a standing image into the holy place of the temple. And that's what Jesus called the abomination of desolation, or even here, that's what is written, the abomination that makes desolate. That's how he's going to go and desecrate the temple. And after he does that, that's when comes the desolation of Jerusalem from the armies that were gathered together in Armageddon. And then there will be one last trump, the trump of God, which is the last trump after that desolation, the abomination of desolation. Just I'm skipping a few steps here. I'm watching the time, and I'm just about finished here. I'm gonna take just a few more minutes to explain this. But then again, if you haven't read the latest study by the Jerry wrote on the seventh seal event, it's all in there, and it's really worth reading. But after the abomination of desolation is set up in the temple, the command will be given to the church to flee in the mountains, the church in Jerusalem, and there will be the desolation that will be done by the armies of all nations. Then the earthquake, the final and greatest earthquake, which will be the third earthquake, and in which will probably shake the whole earth and destroy. Everything's going to fall. Every buildings, skyscrapers, everything is going to be shaken, and fall and crumble down. And then there's going to be a great hail falling down, and the Lord is going to come down with the sound of the trumpet, catch away the church, and then destroy, being the wine press judgment, of the wine press wrath of God. And there's going to be the nation are going to be smitten with the sword that comes out of his mouth, and the false prophet and the Antichrist will be cast into the lake of fire directly. And those are pretty much how the events are going to be. In As I said, it's like an overview. It's not much, nothing in great details, but I hope you appreciate it. And God bless you, everyone, and thank you for joining in Jesus' name. And we'll see you soon. God bless.